Cinema Classics comes to you with support from the Gateway Film Center and is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to the full shows online at WCBE.org. I'm Jimmy Mack.
I'm Johnny DiLoretto. This is Cinema Classics. If you'll recall, a few weeks ago we had Jimmy on.
Yeah,
Welcome
actually
back.
like a few months ago.
Was it a few months
Yeah.
ago? It seems like yesterday.
I know, you missed me.
And I remember at the end of the show I said, hey, you have an open invitation.
Right.
Well, apparently you took it
Yes.
to heart, because now you're sitting in John's seat.
Yeah.
You're reading the underwriting copy.
Right.
You're doing everything. You've just taken over.
Actually, I was just passing by and had to use the restroom, so I appreciate
And just dropped in. Well, how convenient. It works out. So, The Irishman is in theaters now.
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
I attended the press screening for it.
Okay.
But then they screwed it up.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see it.
I missed out. So, The Irishman is in theaters. Disney Plus has just launched.
Right.
So Avengers
Sort of.
Endgame, right? Yeah. Did you get it?
I think their first movie they showed was Crash. Is that right?
Nice. So, a few months ago, Scorsese, I think it was a few months ago, it just seems like this story has had legs.
I know.
It's so silly.
Well, he won't let it die either, though.
Yeah, well, people keep asking him about
Right.
it, and everybody keeps commenting on it.
Right.
So he said at some press conference that he didn't believe that these big superhero movies, I don't think he meant to single out Marvel at all.
I think he did.
You think Marvel
I think
specifically?
he said-
Do you think he really knows the difference between Marvel and Batman versus Superman or anything like that?
I have no idea. I don't know, but I think he specifically said Marvel movies. I think he actually uses that as a genre.
And I actually, that's my point. I
Right.
think he thinks that they're all of these things.
Okay. All
But
right.
anyway, he said that they're not cinema.
Right.
That they are more like amusement parks than they are cinema.
Yeah.
And then he wrote this thing online that I posted, which I thought was a thoughtful response in the New York Times.
Yeah.
And I thought his argument was sound. And I know what he's saying. And you know I love these movies.
Right, of course. Yeah.
I've loved them since I was a kid.
Right.
Superman.
That's right.
And all that stuff. So, but I get what he's saying. You take umbrage.
Yeah, I take umbrage. I think that I think it sounds like a cranky old man thing to say.
Mhm.
And I love Scorsese. You know, I mean, till I die, I'm going to see any movie Scorsese
Right.
puts out. But I think the notion that you can start saying, oh, these movies are popular, or they're fun, or they're for kids, or they're not what I would consider to be art, and to just basically lay a claim like they're not cinema, like that to me is obnoxious. It's obnoxious to a new level.
So, see, that's where I read it differently than that. I don't read him saying it as these are for kids or these are just fun. What I heard him saying is the way they're put together, the way they're produced by committee, by like you can't have this can't be in there. This
But don't you think
this can't play, like this needs to play in China. We
Right.
need to make this much more. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
That a certain amount of humanity is kind of sapped from them in this process, and I think that's what he's saying. Saying it's not cinema is a little strong, but what I think he means is that there's no true directorial vision. Not like a true voice isn't coming through there.
Well, I mean, I would take umbrage with that. I think that's, I think, first of all, when Marvel first started doing this whole insane experiment, because that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
It was an experiment. And let's face it, if the movies weren't good, the experiment would have failed.
True.
But they were good, and
Yeah.
people kept coming, and then
They're
suddenly
very
they
good.
want more. And
Yeah.
and I think that, I think when the first Thor movie, which I'm not a fan of, by the way, but they got Kenneth Branagh to direct. I think the
Right.
idea was...
And I think that first Thor movie actually is much better than it had any right to be.
That's right. That's exactly right. Like, that's
that was
so
a crazy
goofy.
idea.
Right. But I think the idea was they are going to bring in real directors with visions. I mean, I saw Black Panther opening night. I would say that the audience was 70% African American, and to hear the cheers and the applause and to see the looks in the little kids' eyes after that movie ended, like, if that's not cinema, then I don't know what cinema is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's affecting. And, if the fact that he's saying Marvel movies as opposed to, like, if he would have gone off on the DC universe, I would have been like, I'm with you, bro. Those are not cinema. Those suck so bad,
Right,
because they're
right.
clearly thrown together to
Right.
try to, like...
I guess that's my,
You know.
I really don't think he understands. I think he's just saying
So you
comic
think
book
he's
movies.
old and senile?
I think I do think he's old. I just think he's not paying that close attention to what the difference between a Marvel movie and a DC movie is, or any other. I think he's just saying comic book
But
movies.
don't you think that's obnoxious too, in a level? Because in
Hey,
a way
you know
he said,
what?
in a way he said,
Okay.
I don't
Here's
even,
what- this is what-
I've sat through maybe part of one. Is like what he said.
This is why it bothers me that so many people got upset about it.
Yeah.
Again, I love these movies.
Right.
I've spent the last decade seeing them with my kids.
Right.
And yeah, like I cry at them. I get
Right,
really worked
right,
up over them.
Right.
Because superheroes have meant something to me over the course of my life, as I know they have yours.
Right.
But yeah, Scorsese is, one of the, I would say, one of the key artists of the 20th century.
I would agree with that.
And his work, especially even in my life, like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, those are transformative movies. Those are movies that have changed me in some ways, and have shown me things about the world that I was finding hard to articulate myself, or something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's art. So when Scorsese says something like this, I just kind of laughed. I just kind of looked at it and was like, yeah, I get it. I get it, because this guy comes from a different time where cinema was about human beings exchanging ideas and emotional circumstances, and psychological circumstances, and exploring those through images and sound and editing. And I think what he was saying was something a little less,
but
a little less like
but
provocative.
He's so, and there's I think to your point, there's an ego involved with that, because the idea of what he did was incredible, and it was very different. And I mean, you're not going to have Tarantino without a Scorsese. I mean, he laid the groundwork for those style of movies. And he had his own vision. It was clear. I mean, you're watching a Scorsese movie. It was an auteur, but at the same time, like he mentions, when I was making movies with my friends, it was different. And his friends, you have to point out that he's talking about are George Lucas, who's responsible for the Star Wars franchise, and Steven Spielberg, who's basically Indiana Jones. He brought a comic book serial to life, and so you've got these, and again, I don't think Marvel movies, could exist today without the sort of guidance of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, because that's what they did. But
wouldn't you say that even those movies, let's say Jaws, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, rather, that those have a humanity in them that are lacking in a lot of these movies?
I would say, here's what I would argue. If you're going to make a superhero movie, I mean, and because let's face it, it's a genre. It's like, it's like a Western, it's like a sci-fi. It's its own genre, and you can do it well or you can do it poorly. Marvel does it well. Like you said, you cry at these movies.
Yeah.
My kids cry at these movies. You care about the people. You've got actors, like Robert Downey Jr. I mean, these aren't, these people invest, and they're flawed. And if you want to just see what I think you're talking about, that's where, in my opinion, the DC movies have failed, because I don't give a crap about these characters. They're thrown together. They're in these life-threatening situations, but who cares? As opposed to Marvel, who spent, again, this crazy experiment that who knew what was going to happen, decades building this world.
And kind of doing it on the fly a little bit.
A little bit,
yeah.
And then
some of those things didn't pan out at the beginning. You like the Edward Norton Hulk.
That's right.
And
that's
but
exactly
still,
right.
Robert Downey shows up at the end of that one.
Right.
And then Thor, like,
even
changing
Thor,
direction.
like with now having Taika Waititi, right?
Yeah.
He changed the whole basically the whole Thor genre into comedy, and it works so much better that way because he is a goofy character. So let's treat him like a goofy character.
So, wrapping up.
Yeah.
I do think these movies are cinema.
I do too, absolutely.
I do think they're cinema, and they are well done, and they are, you can become emotionally invested in them. I guess I just really didn't care that Scorsese called them not cinema, and I just thought, I didn't get mad at him for saying it, because, I think I understood what he was saying, but I also understand how now it was taken in this vastly different way.
Yeah, I think that, I think part of it is the fact that he would say something like that because he's a hero to so many people who love film, and that he would say it so nonchalantly and also add in that he hasn't really seen them. So it's just like for like a person of his caliber to kind of say that is, I think that's what threw most fans for a loop.
Right. And you know, the real cinematic roller coaster are Scorsese's eyebrows.